Um, okay, good evening, everybody. Today's lecture is on benevolence and altruism, as you can see. And a few weeks ago, I was thinking of a topic to bring to you, and I had 3 or 4, like a little list that I had put together. Some of the topics were things that we had been discussing on our Monday meetings here, and then I Skyped my mom. And we were talking, and I told her about the lecture that I was going to make, and she was like, why don't you talk about benevolence? I think it's a great topic. And then I thought, well, maybe. At first I didn't like the idea very much, but I added that topic to my list. Then, on the same week, I had a student that came, and as you know, I teach English to international students here at a private school. And I had a student come talk to me. She was my student about 2 months ago. And she came to tell me that a piece of advice that I had given her when she was my student had changed her life. And she has a job nowadays here in Vancouver. She's working. She's going to go back. She's from Korea. She's going to go back to her country in a few months, 4 or 5 months, I guess. And then she told me that a piece of advice I had given her had changed her life. And what I did, it was just, she asked me, she wanted to change classes because she was having general English. And then she wanted to take a test. And I just did my job. Like, I just suggested taking a certain class with a certain level and to take the certain test. And with the test, she got a job, and she's applying for immigration as well here, but she will have to go back to her country before she finishes. But anyway, making a long story short, I was like, she was so thankful for my piece of advice. And I was just like, I'm just doing my job. Then the word benevolence came to my mind. I was like, maybe I was benevolent. So I decided, I took my mom's advice, and I decided to talk about it. And as I usually do, I decided to bring the definition of benevolence and altruism, and then you will understand why I have put these two words together. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, benevolence is a noun, and it's the disposition to do good, an act of kindness. And altruism is unselfish regard for or devotion to the welfare of others. So if you look at them, you will see that they have very similar meanings, but altruism is more closely related to doing good to others. And benevolence is more connected to doing good in general, yourself included, right? And we can say that altruism would not exist without benevolence. And talking about them in the gospel, this works. Where does benevolence appear in the gospel? In the gospel according to Spiritism, that is chapter 13, item 20, there is a question. It says, is it right to practice benevolence exclusively amongst persons of the same opinions, beliefs, or political parties? And we know that it's much easier to practice benevolence towards people that we love or towards people we agree with. We have the same ideas, right? It's much easier to love them when they agree with us and they do what we think is right. But that's exactly what we should practice, having benevolence towards people who are very, very different from us. And the answer for the question is no, of course. And then the spirits explain that benevolence towards one's fellow creatures, which is the result of loving your neighbor, manifests itself in the form of affability and mildness. However, it's not always a good thing to trust in appearance. Education and worldliness can give men a thin veneer of these qualities. So that says that we are benevolent, we should be benevolent, but it must come from the heart. Because Unfortunately, we can just fake it here, right? We can deceive other people, showing that we are benevolent when inside we are not. And we can deceive men, but God knows everything. There are many whose feigned good nature is nothing more than an exterior mask, like beautiful clothes hiding interior deformities. The world is full of such people with a smile on their lips, but poison in their hearts, who are mild as long as nothing irritates them, but who bite at the least provocation. Those whose tongues are made of gold when speaking face to face, but change into a poison dart when speaking from behind. That's very thought-provoking, I would say. And we have to note that there is a brotherhood between all mankind. And a true Christian is a person who doesn't inquire as to beliefs and opinions. We are not benevolent toward, as I said before, we're not benevolent towards people who we agree with. And benevolence has to come from the heart. Okay, I'm just gonna continue. Yeah, okay, I'll give you my example now. While I was preparing this lecture as well, I remembered something that happened to me about 20 to 15 years ago, a long time ago. I was already a teacher in Brazil, and once I was teaching in a very small school, and there was this other teacher. We were getting together. We put the two classes together to have a sort of activity. I actually don't remember exactly what it was. But anyway, we were talking with her students and my students. We're talking together, and then I said something at that time, and she corrected me. She corrected my pronunciation. And when she did, she hurt me. Perhaps she did it in a way to help me, to try to tell me, like, hey, look, this is wrongly pronounced. You should pronounce it this way. But I didn't take it that way. I thought it was really rude of her to do it the way she did. And then later, I remember I was racking my brains towards the word that she taught me or that she corrected, and I was like, this is not mispronounced. I'm sure of the pronunciation. And then later, after class was over, I checked the dictionary, and I was right. So I just, I was angry actually at her. Anyway, I didn't forget it, and I didn't forgive. So a few months later, she tried a test, an English test in Brazil, and she failed it. It's a test that goes from A to D, A, B, C, D, E. Sorry, A, B, C, D, E. And if you take A, B, or C, you pass. And if you take D or E, you fail. And she got D in the test, and she failed. We were having a meeting together with her and all the other teachers in the school. And I knew that she had failed the test because I had taken the test in the same week. And nobody else knew. None of the teachers knew. And as we were sitting, I asked her, and then I said her name, what was the test like? And then she was like, oh, yeah, I failed. And I was like, yes. Because she told everybody that she had failed, and and I felt good. It's just, I regret it so much, and I think it makes me feel better nowadays telling you that, because I did that on purpose. I asked her during the meeting if she had passed, on purpose, because I knew that she had failed. And why? Why did I do that? Because I was not benevolent. Perhaps, as I said, she was correcting me that day because she wanted to help. And I really, truly think that she thought the pronunciation of the word was wrong. My pronunciation was wrong and hers was correct. So perhaps she was just thinking, she thought that she was doing something good. Maybe the way she did it wasn't appropriate because she did it in front of the students. But, I should have been I should have been grateful to have a teacher who worked with me that would correct me. And I should have just let it go, right?
What's that word?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
Sorry. So, yeah. then it's, yeah, and that's a true story. Oh, I feel better now that I told you. Oh, so in confession, exactly. In the Median's book, it is chapter 24. This chapter talks about the distinction between good and bad spirits. And there is an item 264, that says, goodness and benevolence are the essential attributes of purified spirits. They have no hatred, neither for men nor for other spirits. They pity weaknesses, they criticize errors, but always with moderation, without anger, and without animosity. So I brought this from the Median's book because it says that they criticize errors, right? So being benevolent does not mean being submissive or accepting everything that people say or agreeing with what people say. If you see somebody on the street hitting somebody else or like bullying a child, you're not supposed to go like, oh, okay, sure, I'm not going to do anything because it's none of my business, or you should speak out against things that are wrong. But you do it with moderation, without anger, and without animosity. We are not, these are the characteristics of good spirits. We are not good spirits yet. But we need time. We are here to practice. So benevolence, if it's not natural within us yet, we should practice. This is what I should have done with the teacher before, that I didn't. But if I look back, I am better than I was 15, 20 years ago, because today I would never, ever, ever, ever have said anything like that, ever. So I should be happy about it, right? And continuing the same item, if it be admitted that truly good spirits can do only good and say only good things, it must thence be concluded that anything which, in the language of the spirits, betrays a want of goodness and benevolence cannot emanate from a good spirit. And that also helps us distinguish good from bad spirits. If we listen to if we listen to a spirit through a medium, we can distinguish if they are good or bad through the language they use and their intention in what they say. And everything they say, or if they say anything, as it says there, which betrays a want of goodness and benevolence, it doesn't mean that they're a good spirit. Okay. Then, going back to the Spirit's book, question 886. As I said, being benevolent, this is not from the Spirit's book, this is something I wrote, doesn't mean consenting to anything which doesn't sound right, nor does it mean just accepting everything people do or say. Then in the Spirit's book, they ask the Spirits the question, what is the true meaning of the word charity as used by Jesus? And the answer is benevolence for everyone, indulgence towards the imperfections of others, and forgiveness of offenses. I think I have to read that many times. So as Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And whatever we wish was done to ourselves is what we should do to others. So again, going back to that story that I told you about the teacher, if I put myself in her shoes and if I think that I'm doing the right thing, like I'm correcting a teacher who works with me because I want her to do a good job and so on and so forth, what would I want the other teacher to respond, right? It's not what I did. It wasn't my response. So whenever we are answering a question, or somebody asks us a question, a friend asks us a question, or a family member, or a coworker, try to think to yourself before you give an answer, like an impulsive answer. Try to think for yourself, what would I want to hear better? How would I want to hear something? Because maybe they're not going to say what you want to hear, but the way they put it. Am I clear? Yeah? Okay, the way they say it might change the view, your view as you see the answer. And we are usually more benevolent towards the rich too, which just goes to show how imperfect we are, right? There is a part in the same question that talks about it, but I haven't included here, which is not, yeah. Okay. There is the continuation, I have already mentioned that, but it's from the same question, the AED 886. Love and charity complement the law of justice, since loving your neighbor is to do to them all the good in our power, all that we would wish to have done to ourselves. This is the meaning behind Jesus' words, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I have already mentioned that before. And if we think of ourselves, we humans, we usually don't forgive, and most often we are not indulgent with others, and then we expect other people to be benevolent towards us. If we consider Brazilians, for example, I can only talk about Brazilians because I am a Brazilian, and Brazilians complain a lot about everything, because the country's this, the country's that, and we can't trust anybody, we can't trust the politicians, we can't just complain. But then look at yourself. What are you doing? Are you doing the right thing? Are you at your job? Are you following the rules? Are you being benevolent towards other people who work with you? You know, if we are not benevolent towards ourselves and other people, how do we expect other people to be benevolent towards us? No one will. So stop complaining. In the Gospel, again, according to Spiritism, chapter 7, item 12, there is the question. Mankind, why do you complain about the calamities which you yourselves have heaped upon your heads? You despise the saintly and divine morality of Christ. So do not be surprised that the cup of iniquity should overflow on all sides. That means, who is it to blame? Someone is not being benevolent towards you. Whose fault is it? It's everybody's. We are included. We have to really get rid of pride. The same answer to that question. Trouble has become generalized. Who is it to blame if not you who have unceasingly tried to crush each other? It's impossible to be happy without mutual benevolence. But how can benevolence coexist alongside pride? Pride, this is the root of all your troubles. Easier said than done, right? Then, after reading the parts of the Gospel and the Medium's book and the Spirit's book as well, I started thinking, how can we be benevolent? How can we bring that to our daily lives then? And we can be benevolent by respecting everyone around us. Our way of doing things is not always the right. We should start practicing benevolence with the ones that are closer to us. Our family members, our friends, our co-workers, our classmates, our neighbors, etc. We should also remember that it must come from the heart. So we should practice. And I read, I haven't written it down, but I believe it was in the Medium's book, that it says that we should not fake it. You should not wear a mask and just say, smile to somebody who you don't feel it. But don't do it then. Don't say anything. Like, again, bringing the story of the teacher, if I wasn't ready to forgive her, I should have kept quiet, right? And not said anything. If I'm not ready to say anything good, just keep quiet. Don't say it. It's better. you are being benevolent in a way. There is an author called Rick Hansen. He is a PhD neuropsychologist. He teaches meditation and he has published many books in neuroscience. And he wrote that book, Hardwiring Happiness, and other books. If you Google his name, you'll find them. And he talks about being benevolent in the book. And he explains, this is not spiritism, but I thought it was a good idea to bring it because it's scientific. He explains the benefits of benevolence. And he says that benevolence toward oneself, towards yourself, is good because it helps you avoid harms, it helps you approach others and attach to others. And when you feel that you belong to a group, your brain shifts into a more responsive mode in which the body repairs and refuels itself. You feel peaceful, happy, and loving. So the first thing you have to do to practice benevolence is to be benevolent towards yourself. You first. Then, being benevolent towards others. That reduces quarrels, it builds trust, and it opens doors for people to come to you. People will trust you more and they will come to ask for your opinion, and you will feel better about yourself in a way. Benevolence within and between nations. It promotes the rule of law, it educates children, it feeds the hungry, supports human rights, offers humanitarian aid, and works for peace. And last but not least, benevolence toward our planet. Benevolence towards our planet tries to protect endangered species and reduce global warming, like littering, for example. Why do people litter, right? Why do they graffiti? When I say graffiti, I mean the ugly one, not the beautiful paintings that we see in some walls. And so when you vandalize public property, you're also disregarding our house. This is our house now. So you're not being benevolent towards this beautiful space you have to live in. The same author, whose name I forgot, Rick Hansen, he also published an article in the Psychology Today magazine. And in that magazine, he talks about sustaining benevolence. How can we sustain benevolence in ourselves and in our relationships, nations, and the world? And then he says, try to understand, to know what benevolence feels like in your body, heart, and mind. And then he does an experiment, or he brings us experiment. He says, try to bring somebody to your mind, somebody you really love, and try to wish good things towards that person. So like you close your eyes and you bring somebody to your mind and you wish good things and warmth. How does it feel? Then try other kinds of benevolence toward other beings, other people, and try to sense what it feels like. If you know what it feels like, it's better to practice that during your day and your life. Realize that benevolence is natural and normal. If we see somebody in distress, for example, we see lots of examples in the news of people who helped other people in accidents. And why do we do that? Why do we try to help somebody when we see that they're suffering? Because it's natural. It's within us. It's written in our conscience. It's a natural law. So just, the genes that we have tell that the gratitude are natural. They're commonly found in us today. It's an instinct. So just do it. Take care of yourself. This is similar to what it said before, being benevolent towards yourself. If our core needs are met, if we are not hungry, if we are not under threat, our brain goes to a resting state. And when we are in this resting state, we are fair-minded, we are empathetic, we are cooperative, compassionate, and kind. We are benevolent. So try to sustain. It's much more difficult to sustain this state when you are when you are afraid, when there's fear, frustration, and loneliness. But try to sustain it. And take a stand for benevolence. When you see something wrong happening, speak out against it. Don't let it go. And after your day is over, try to reflect. Like when you go to bed and you do your prayers, try to think of what happened during the day and ask yourself, could I have done anything better? Should I have reacted that way or this way? Was I benevolent enough towards that person, this person? Step out of your comfort zone. Not doing anything foolish. Consider how you could stretch your intentions a little bit more towards others. In that same exercise that he gave in the beginning of thinking of somebody and wishing them well, try to think of somebody you don't know. Go to a coffee shop and look at a person and go, and wish well. Wish them well. And last but not least, appreciate some of the benevolence that buoys you along. We know that we are surrounded by benevolent spirits all the time. So reach out to them. Pray. Ask for help. They are being benevolent towards us all the time. So take advantage of the good spirits that help us every day, all the time. And our guardian angel as well. Within my research, I also found something about the Mental Health Foundation in the UK. And there was an article on altruism. And they said that, research findings, altruism promotes positive physiological changes in the brain associated with happiness. This is what the other guy said in the book too, that when you do something good, you feel within you. And they also say in this article that it creates a positive feedback loop of generosity and happiness. So you do something good and then somebody does something good to somebody else, and so it generates more generosity and more benevolence. It also brings a sense of belonging and it reduces isolation. When you help others, you feel that you make part of a group, that you're not alone, that you can count on other people for help as well. It helps to keep things in perspective. Volunteering, for example. Volunteering makes you realize how lucky you are, right? It makes you not focus on the things you don't have, but the things you do have, and then other people wish they did. So it keeps things in perspective, and it helps you see your world with different eyes. It also reduces stress and improves your health. Emotions which are related to helping people, such as compassion, may help stabilize the immune system against immunosuppressing effects of stress. Altruistic acts may also decrease pain by stimulating the brain to release endorphins, which are powerful natural painkillers. It helps reduce negative feelings because of the loop that I just told you, that it generates more good. Benevolence generates more benevolence, you could say. And it can help us live longer. Sorry. It says, there was a research that says that people who give support to others live longer than those who don't. And this included support to a friend, a relative, a neighbor, emotional support to your spouse, etc. An example of altruism is in the book Action and Reaction by Chico Xavier and by the spirit André Luiz. And there is a little story, I will summarize it. There is a little story of a young man, he died and he was watching over his mom. His mom was kind of sick and she had to buy medicine, and she had 2 children who were also kind of sick and she didn't have the money. So there was this guy, Adelino. Adelino was a friend of the family, and this spirit who had died, the son who had died, he would whisper to Adelino's ear, he mentally begged Adelino to help. Go help my mom, please. And Adelino, believing that he was obeying his own impulses, he visited the house, the guy's mother, and he gave her the money she needed, and he was always trying to help and all. So this spirit talked to the assistant, whose name I don't remember. either that part, but it's okay. And he says, please help Adelino on earth, because I keep asking him for help for my mom, and he never says no. He always helps, and I want to do something good for him. And then the assistant says, don't worry, Adelino is in a web of fraternal affinity that he has woven for himself. A lot of friends are supplying him with the resources he needs to faithfully carry out his caring task. Circumstances of a material nature will come together in his favor as a consequence of acquired merit. So, he was just helping the other guy's mom, and he wanted the guy that had died wanted to help Adelino, but it's just, you are just surrounded by good spirits, and every good thing you do goes noticed. No good deed goes unnoticed. God knows everything. Then I haven't brought it to you, but I found a few messages from Saint Augustine in the Gospel. And Saint Augustine is an example of benevolence. He was born November 13th, 354 AD, and died August 28th, 430 AD. And he was a Christian theologist and philosopher. He believed that the grace of Christ was indispensable to human freedom. And when we read the messages today, we think that he was like such a perfect person. But it wasn't all that easy for St. Augustine as well. And I want to show you, I think I'm just going to show you the beginning. Yeah, I don't know, I'll see. But there is a documentary on St. Augustine, and it talks about his life. And he had a very difficult life in the beginning. And he wasn't Christian at all. Very similar to Paul of Tarsus, actually. And yeah, I want to show you the beginning of the documentary. But before, you see, he didn't have an easy life. He got lost in lust. And he wasn't very good at school. Like, he didn't like school, didn't like learning. And he didn't believe that, like, his mom was Christian and very faithful to God, but he didn't believe it, and he was just like, yeah, I want women, I want this, I want that. So it wasn't easy for him as well. So when I first saw that, I was like, there's hope for me, because he after when he wrote Confessions, he was really regretful and repentful of what he had done. So. And his messages are so beautiful, so beautiful. We don't think that this might have happened to him, right? I didn't show you that part, but actually he converted after his mom died, and it doesn't say in the video, of course, but I truly believe that she played a role in that from the other side, in helping him to see that what he was doing wasn't that good. There are lots of messages from St. Augustine in the Gospel and also in the Spirit's book. There is one from the Medium's book, chapter 31, that says that it's not enough to believe. You must set an example of kindness, helpfulness, disinterestedness, and your faith will prove sterile, and you yourselves will reap from it no advantage. There is a message that he wrote. It's not there. It's in the Spirit's book that I'd like to read to you. He says, it's in the end of the Spirit's book, and he says, ask yourself clear and precise questions, and do not hesitate to ask them often. You should devote a few minutes to guaranteeing happiness that will last forever. Do you not work every day so that you may rest when you have reached old age? Is this rest not the object of your desires, the aim that helps you endure your current hardships and deprivation? What comparison is there between a few days of rest, impaired by the weaknesses of the body, and the endless rest that awaits the virtuous? Is the latter not worth a slight effort? I know that many will say, the present is certain, and the future uncertain. But this is precisely the error that we must erase from your minds by showing you your future in such a way as to leave no shred of doubt. This is why, having begun by producing phenomena designed to grab your attention by appealing to your senses, we now give you the moral teachings that each of you must in turn spread. This is why we have dictated the Spirit's book. St. Augustine. And that's all. Thank you.